I'll upload it on YouTube a bit later. Okay. So welcome to the February contributors meeting. I know there's a couple of people who asked to join or offered to join who aren't necessarily contributors, but you're interested in the project, so you're more than welcome. Today, this is the agenda we have. Going to do a little roundtable and catch up at the beginning to see what people have been doing and who's joined the project, some introductions. Also wanted to cover how do I know what to do? So I think there's a lot of work at the moment. There's a lot of potential things people can be getting their teeth into, but it might not always be obvious where to start. So I've got a couple of slides about that. Then we're going to do, I'm not going to do a demo of FAS Swarm, but I'm going to explain what it is and why we've done it. Talk a little bit about the context of why there's a new watchdog and what's happening with that. Stefan is going to give us a demo of some load testing techniques with Kubernetes. We've been able to break through to some new ground and it's really looking really impressive. And then there's a demo from Eric, which is going to show us Azure Container Service or Kubernetes Service with OpenFaaS. And if Ram joins, he'll give us a demo of his Java template. What I'll just do real quick is just edit this because I know we have Javier on here too. And he's doing some work around the UI. So we can get started with this. I'm going to stop sharing now. We'll just go around and like we may have done in the past, I'm going to start at the top with Vivek. Vivek, can you hear me?
Yeah, hello Alex. Yeah, I can hear you.
Do you want to give a quick update?
Yeah. So hello, this is Vivek. I'm from Bangalore, India. I have been introduced to OpenFaaS through Hack Oktoberfest, and I have been contributing from that time. And recently, I worked on a Tesseract function that we added to OpenFaaS S2 recently, and I have done some small contribution in FAST CLI.
That's the OCR Tesseract, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so have a look in the store. Vivek has a new function there that can recognize what text is in an image and could make some really cool use cases around that. Then we have Anisha. So Anisha is at University of Washington, PhD student using OpenFaaS. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you're doing?
Sure. Actually, I just got my PhD in June, so now I'm a postdoctoral fellow. And I'm working on a project that combines crowdsourcing and deep learning for medical image segmentation. So specifically, I study the brain, and I'm interested in measuring structures of the brain that can tell us more about disease. And so I have a small app up where we can crowdsource the tracing of stroke lesions, of brain tumors, and of a structure in the brain called the dentate gyrus, which is really important for memory. And I'm using OpenFaaS because I want to train deep learning algorithms on the crowdsourced image segmentation and deploy it for other researchers to use.
Thank you. Yeah, this is some really cool stuff. And I shared about what Anisha's doing Agile Peterborough meetup a couple of weeks ago. And if my paper's accepted at KubeCon, I'd like to talk a bit more about it there. Now, one of the things we started to do is try to deploy onto Packet for a bit more performance and an easier setup. So also wrote a blog post about using Minio for storage. If that's something that interests other people, have a look at it. I mainly wrote it for Anisha to get started using storage with OpenFaaS and those images. So yeah, welcome. Burton?
Hi all, Burton from Austin, Texas. Like Vivek, been part of the project since Hacktoberfest. Really started getting into it to sort of migrate away from the microservice architecture and into like a nano architecture with serverless functions. lately I've been trying to come up with some ideas for the OpenFast store. The ImageMagick thing has really sort of piqued my interest in thinking of sort of functionizing some of the CLIs, mostly like the AWS CLI, like the Git login and things like that. I think it would be a pretty cool function to have, but so sort of hashing out the ideas in my head.
Great, thank you. Charlie Pitkin.
Hey everybody, Charlie from Dallas, Texas. I first got interested in OpenFast. I'd read a couple articles about it, and I do a bunch of DVD ripping and like media storage in my home server setup. And I really wanted to use something simple and easy and containerized. And so OpenFast worked really well to build automated transcoding for all of my media. So set up Nomad and batch jobs using OpenFast, and that works extremely well. And also looking to get into learning Go and contributing to open source. So yeah, looking to get involved.
Great. I actually would love to see some of that stuff if you have it open source about ripping the DVDs. My wife is hanging on to a really old MacBook because it's a DVD drive, and if I can rip it and get her onto something more modern, she has a bunch of DVDs for her job.
That is currently in the works. I'm working on getting the final sections of the blog post put together so it can be reviewed.
Awesome. Yeah, I'd love to help promote that. Ed?
So Ed Vilmetti from Packet. Interested in OpenFast on a couple of fronts. The OpenFast the easy way with Kubernetes on the Mac, and Fastnetty, a very simple setup there. Just got started doing that. And OpenFast the hard way, getting OpenFast running on ARM64. Making some progress there, but it's good. It's clear that I'm going to have to work on that at the pace that you guys are working on everything else to keep up. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. So it would be great if there's more interest around ARM64. I think at the moment there's a lot around regular ARM that you see on a Raspberry Pi, but we could do with some help in terms of releasing images or keeping things up to date. So it's just not. Oh, I think there's nobody using it. So
yeah, I think there's nobody using it because it doesn't work yet, or if it does work, it works for some amount of time, and then as time moves on, it's not keeping up. So I'm going to see what kind of time I can sort through, because Kubernetes on ARM64 is a bit of a priority for me.
Okay.
So see what we can do.
Yeah, appreciate your help on that. Next person on my list is Eric.
Hey guys, I'm Eric. My webcam sucks, but you can see I'm wearing the whale shirt. Been working on the project since September, and first got into it because I was a big fan of AWS Lambda, but wanted to find something that works cross-platform. So ended up coming across Alex's post on Hacker News. And yeah, I've been pretty deep in it ever since. I made some contributions to the FAS CLI. And yeah, I'm going to be demoing AKS deployment later, so it should be fun.
Thank you. Finian?
Hi, I'm Finian. I'm a student from the UK, but I've just moved to New Zealand, so I haven't been doing much with OpenFAS recently. But I helped Alex create the Colorized bot with my friend Ollie at KubeCon, not KubeCon, DockerCon. And we plan to add another bit to Colorized bot where it will analyze the image you've sent it and then compose a tweet depending on that. So say you send it a picture of a car, it will reply saying, we've just colorized your car. So trying to work with Johnny, who wrote a TensorFlow function to do that. So yeah, that's my plan for this week.
Great. Thank you. Now I've got Mark Peak. Hi, Mark. Are you on audio?
I hope I am.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi, this is Mark Peak from VMware. So my team is developing a project called Dispatch, which uses OpenFaaS as a dependency, and we're making really good progress on that project. So, the reason that I'm on this call is that I'd like to keep tabs on Alex, but I like to keep tabs on the project itself to see where it's going, since it is a dependency of ours. Hopefully in next month or two, we could come on and give a demo of what Dispatch is and how it interacts with OpenFaaS. I'll also give a shout out to Finian. Haven't seen you since we were doing barbecue in Copenhagen. All right.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So I met Mark for the first time. I think, was it at the end of DockerCon in May in Austin?
Yeah, I think that was it.
Yeah, he's a great guy. He's at all of the big tech events. A good guy to know from VMware. Now the next person I've got here is Remus. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Hey.
Yeah, my name is Remus. Basically, I'm not much involved with FAS, just helping with Helm charts, so you can push it upstream and everybody can use it. And of course, using a bit myself, testing things, and try that on even DCOS because I work for Mesosphere. But my interest in OpenFaaS maybe to use for CI/CD pipelines. It's a bit hacky yet, but looking forward for more. And I met Alex in San Francisco in December, so afterwards, I knew about OpenFaaS before, but afterwards I really started to look to it. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you for the help around the Helm chart.
Yeah,
Rochelle?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm Rochelle. I'm a student here in India. I am not yet started with the OpenFaaS, but I wanted to start contributing to it. I'm doing an intern here at a company where I'm using Python and the rest and making some APIs for them. And yeah, that's my plan to go ahead. I don't know much about FAS yet, but I'm still learning. I know about before from the DockerCon videos, but yeah, I am learning about it.
Yeah, please feel free to message us in Slack and ask questions, or if everyone's asleep, try and message me. I can get back in touch with you later.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Yeah. Stefan? Are you on mute?
Hi, sorry. I'm Stefan. I work for Weaveworks, and I've been contributing to OpenFaaS since some months ago. I've been promoted to core contributor, and I hope I can make up the challenge.
Yeah, totally. Thanks for everything that you're doing at the moment. It's really making a difference. So nice brief update. We're going to hear from Stefan again in a second. And Javier, are you still on the line?
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah. See?
This is Javier. I am from Spain. This is my first OpenFaaS meeting. I'm a big fan of AWS Lambda Seric. So thank you for inviting me, Alex. I've been working as a full stack web developer for 2 years, and we've been using OpenFaaS to extend the functionality of some internal tools. And I'm joining a new company in a week, so I want to spend some time contributing to the OpenFaaS UI. I will show you later some screenshots and demos. And also I'm giving a talk in 2-3 weeks in Madrid at TechFest event. So I need to prepare some slides and stuff.
Well, if you want the slides that I use, you're welcome to take them as a template and to just chop out what you don't want.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that sounds really good. So let's keep moving with this. Cool. I'm now going to share. I don't think we missed anybody. If we did, shout. No. Okay. So the demos we're going to get tonight, I'm going to look at FastForm just now. But before we do that, I'm going to look at a few ways of how would you know what to do, especially if you're coming into the project new, or you're not writing Go code yet, or you still want to be helpful, or you kind of just wondering whether there's anything else you could be doing that could be beneficial. That's what I want to talk about now. So the theme is your community. Okay. How do I know what to do? Well, if you'd like to participate in the community, you can actually invite new people to the community through Slack or to contribute. Now, there's instructions in the contribution guide on how to join Slack. It's very easy. Normally, I'll just ask people to say a quick one-liner about themselves so that we can give them a warm welcome. It's not an open invitation, so that people have to do at least one thing to join. There's a lot of people that are joining who then don't do anything, never really hear from them. But of those, let's say 100% of people that join, maybe 50% might be hanging out, 30% might be actually active, 5 or 10% may be contributing. So if we can keep reaching out to people as a whole community, make it our community, then I think that will really help. Faz Friday is the Twitter campaign we've been running on a Friday. I've been sending out stickers and all sorts of things to people who've been doing cool things with OpenFaz. Even if you've already got the t-shirt, please keep doing this because it really just helps raise the profile. I think it's great at the end of the week to be able to just get together and share cool things that we've been working on. So one of the things that I really liked recently was, guys, I think they're called Pipeline.ai. We're using machine learning with a GPU, OpenFaz and Kubernetes. And they just put something out on the internet. Chris was the guy I was talking to. It looks very interesting. And there's a ton of other stuff. So just go and have a look. Trawling on GitHub and on Twitter is really interesting too. So when we're looking at the community, sometimes we're looking inwardly, but also to look outwardly is really important. So sometimes I'll look through GitHub and search for OpenFaz and find 10 really cool projects that I never knew about. Things like that might be, there was somebody that wrote his own event dispatcher for OpenFaz. I never would have known unless I'd had a look, and it seemed really interesting. Open issues within Faz, Faz CLI, and Faz Netties, they're the 3 sort of hives of activity. If you want to participate, head over there, see if you can comment on something, chase somebody up, see if there's anything you can add. Maybe, I know Umesh was really helping looking at issues and seeing, could they be closed? And if you have access to Derek, you can actually say, Derek, close this issue. If you don't have access and you want it, just tell me, I'll give it to you. Otherwise, ping someone and we'll close it. Setting the difficulty of issues is a really good way of helping people get involved in the project. So if there's a new issue, like Javier, he's tackling something at the moment, raise an issue, find an existing one, and just say skill hard, skill easy, intermediate. Just by putting labels on them, it actually helps people find it more accessible to contribute. And then the last point in terms of participating is just to communicate and be active in Slack. So if you have the opportunity to come into the group a few times per week, you can check your messages and just see the pulse. What I find is that whenever I go to a Slack group once per week or once per 2 weeks, there's so much that's gone on, I have no idea. And often I think there's people that are just kind of very active. It's really great. When people only come once a week and you need a response on something, it can be it can slow stuff down. So I got this ice cream cone. It's usually a funnel. And just talking about the community looking outwardly, this is a very common sort of, I'd say, metaphor almost. The big challenge for an open source community is raising awareness about what the project's doing. So there's a lot going on. Once you raise awareness, people start to give the project consideration. So I think there's a few people here tonight that have definitely started to pay consideration to the project because of the awareness that we've generated through FAS Friday or Hacker News posts or things on Twitter. Once you start paying consideration to the project, maybe like Anish has been doing, you may then become converted to somebody who's actually using the project or trying it out. And then of those people, some of them gain loyalty to the project, so they will start to invest their time in it, try and put their own slant on it. And then eventually, through this kind of pipeline, that huge amount of people that became aware of the project, a few of them become advocates for it. So just like Stefan is doing now, stepping up into the core contributors team, and Eric really helping and going the extra mile. That's not for everybody, but those people will then help with the awareness, consideration, conversion, and loyalty. And this is called a funnel. So I just wanted to talk about that and just make people aware that this is something that really is going to help grow the community. Now, you may be wondering, well, that's fine. It's a bit too fluffy for me. I want something more hands-on. If you want to participate in the project, here's a few ways you could do that. You can test new pull requests. Even test your own ones if you want. That actually really helps. Engage with proposals and hashtag contributors. So we have a contributors channel where there's a lot of talk about making changes to code, fixing bugs. There are proposals on GitHub. There's one out at the moment about deprecating support for Raspberry Pi Zero. If you care about that, go and comment on it. There's one about using a new signature that looks more like Lambda. If that interests you, go and comment on it. Obviously, you can write code to fix issues and cover new features, but you might not know what to do. So again, look at Trello, look at GitHub. These resources are out there. There's a lot of stuff that you can get involved with. Now, if you can't write Go, maybe like Rochelle, you're coming new to the project, you might be able to write a sample. So if you've got particular strength with Python, maybe one of the things that you're doing for your work or you're doing for fun could actually be published as a sample on GitHub, and we can link it to the project. Again, it just helps with promoting what we're doing, which is creating something very, very cool here. Now, one of the things that I think is really important as we get deeper and deeper into the technical side is being able to show people how to do basic things. You know, things we may think are basic, like Finian and I have worked with Minio for months, but actually, how do you explain it in a way that somebody coming to the project for the first time could get it running in 10 minutes? So these are just some ideas on how to participate in the project on a practical level, some about how to promote and contribute to the community. And really, the whole point here is just to make it our community, your community. All right. If you have any other ideas, please feel free to suggest them.
Alex, I might add that it's always good when someone's coming into the project to always document what it is that hangs them up in trying to adopt it or use it, because then that can improve the documentation for everyone going forward. So, you know, once you get to know it, obviously it's not a problem anymore. So always, you know, raise issues or better yet, contribute those PRs back to documentation that helps explain things better for even newer users coming on board.
Yeah, I like that. I think that's really makes sense. I've seen Javier doing that today. Since we've made some changes to Docker Swarm, the way you work on the UI is a bit different, and he's gone in there, found that it didn't work, and updated the docs. So, you know, it's good. It's definitely a good thing to be doing. And sort of extend this a little bit longer. There's this thing that you may have seen. There's an award in the Kubernetes community called Chop Wood, Carry Water. I think this comes from a Zen proverb, and it's basically talking about doing stuff. And the more you're kind of wanting to have ownership in the project, the more you kind of do the normal day-to-day stuff that we've been talking about. And chopping wood might be something like Eric here, 2 days ago, he added question as a category to an issue. Just helps people see when they're looking from a high level what we've got and where to start getting involved. Dungeon Master's actually Umesh, and here he's chased me up saying, you know, we can close this issue now. He's actually got access to Derek now, and the ones he found after that, he closed himself. Again, these are just examples of things that are really easy to do. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll spend half an hour of the morning and I'll just go through the issues, see what I can ping, see what I can close. And then I was really happy to see this interaction with Ed. There were 4 of us here, maybe 5. And you can see we're just really active, supporting Ed, trying to help him out when he was running into some behavior he didn't expect. Again, that's just carrying water, chopping wood, and it really makes a big difference to the project. So thanks to everyone that's doing that. Now, if you're wondering if there's anything left, there is. We've got 64 issues and 9 pull requests on the FAS repo, quite a few on the FAS CLI. And you see all of these issues on FAS Netties that were closed 2 days ago. That was me sitting down and going through them all. But if we're all able to share some of the work, I think can make this a lot easier to manage. And then when people like Mark look from the outside of the project inwards, they can see that we actually care about this stuff and we want to make it presentable to the outside world too. So thanks for listening to all of that. And this has been recorded. So if you want to go over it, if you've got any questions, please get in touch with me afterwards. The FAS Swarm, I'll talk about very quickly, then we've got some interesting demos. What FAS Swarm is if you see here, this diagram of OpenFAS, we've got our UI that you've probably all used, the gateway, and your functions. Now, up until recently, the code that talked to Docker Swarm, if you were using that, was actually in the gateway. That's now been moved out of the gateway, and it works exactly the same as the support for Kubernetes. What that means is the gateway was able to shrink down a lot, and we could remove duplication. And so the way Docker Swarm, Kubernetes, Nomad, and anything else works, maybe DCOS, can all be exactly the same. They're symmetrical. Now, this took quite a bit of time because I wanted to make sure that it was fully tested and that everything was working. A lot of people got involved with this, and I really appreciate that. We tested things like pulling from private repositories, etc., etc. Now, while we've done this, we've also been able to do some performance tuning that we'll refer back to in a few moments with Stefan. There's a new GitHub repository for FAS Swarm, which is OpenFAS FAS Swarm. There's not going to be a lot of activity here, but it's actually just going to be spread out now between the main FAS repo that you already know, Kubernetes repo, etc. This doesn't need any changes from you. Next time you update your OpenFAS stack, if you're using Docker Swarm, you'll see there's a compose file that now has an extra container called FAS Swarm. So this now matches what we do with Kubernetes. We got any questions about that?
Yeah, I just want to clarify that, like Alex just said, you don't need to do anything at all. The Docker Compose file in the FAS repo has the FAS Swarm image in it. And at first that confused me a little bit because it's like, do I need to download FAS Swarm as well? But so the FAS is the gateway only. And yeah, that's kind of new because it used to be that FAS was the gateway and FAS Swarm. So just clarify that.
Yeah, so they used to be together, inseparable. Even if you wanted Kubernetes, you still had to have all the code there for Swarm. It's now separate. Okay. Javier, are you ready to show us the blank, is it blank slate?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah? Let's time box it to 5 minutes if you need it.
No, don't worry, don't worry. Let's see if I can share the screen. Okay. Can you see the screen? Okay. So the first of all is the blank slate. The name comes from GitHub CSS framework, Primer CSS. They use this kind of component when they don't have anything to show. Okay. So if we do this function, this will show up. The idea is to show this component where there are no functions in the cluster, so the user can deploy his first function via dashboard or using FastCLA. So here's the curl pipe pass to install. This will be ready in some days. Well, this is actually done as you can see, but I want to clean up the code of the Angular and Angular material code. So adding new features will be easier. And there's another thing related with the manual deployment. This is something I'm working. This is an improved version of the manual deployment dialog. This is there's a need of adding new steps or tabs for environment or managing secrets or networking things. So we need to add we need to feed this content in a new dialog. This will be ready maybe in some days, because I want to link this with the function store, and basically that's it. There's another thing I'm working on. This is about the sidebar. You can see that this is not the correct height of this component. So I'm working on something similar with a number of replicas, or maybe the error rate from Prometheus. I don't know. I need to think about this, but I want to work with the UI in this day, this week.
That looks really cool. And can you go back to your first tab?
Yeah.
So Stefan's girlfriend put together some mock-ups, and this I think is almost exactly it, right? And she had this idea of a blank slate, so that when you come there for the first time, rather than saying select a function, it's actually a bit more instructive. Maybe people coming at it that are not as technical can get ahead a bit quicker. Does anyone have any questions for Javier?
I just think that environment variable thing looks really cool in the manual deploy. Is that done yet, Javier?
Not really. I have a demo, but I think it's not here. Oh, I have in another branch. I will send you some screenshots of it because it's a widget or a component like Heroku or AWS for just for adding key value pairs for the environment variables. It's working now, but I don't have this in this demo.
Okay.
It's in another branch.
There is actually a screenshot of the environment as a mock-up on an issue. So I was saying earlier about like keeping a pulse on the issues that are raised. There's one there. I think it's just called Add Environment. We'll paste it into Slack after the call, and anyone wants to have a look at it. So I like what Javier's doing. I think it's great to be investing in the UI. We just need to take our time with it, make sure that it's right, because a lot of people end up using this. Eric, you were going to show us. Sorry.
I have a suggestion. So the main problem I'm having right now with the UI, and I think everybody has it, when you deploy a function, the while will not tell you when that function is actually running. And we have in our provider's API something that will get you the actual number of pods or whatever containers that are running. So maybe we can make with this new UI some kind of loading while you will pull from the provider. And if the provider will tell you, I'm having 0 replicas, don't let the user click on it. Just disable it and spin something there, because the first impression you'll get, you'll deploy a function from the store and you'll rapidly click on call, and the first call will crash, because if it's a big function or if you're running on some Raspberry Pis, it will take time to deploy.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to avoid that first impression that it doesn't work.
Agreed. That is being worked on. Eric's been working on it since I think October or September. The main trouble we have is that it kills the performance. It absolutely kills it. So when you have a refresh rate of a second or few seconds, you're hitting your entire cluster to get all of the functions and find out if they're actually running. You add like 10, 20, 30 functions, take a few seconds. So we really need to make sure we have it right or we have it cached. It might be possible just to get something high level, like the actual replicas that are there. But to know whether you can actually run it, you need to know that the status of the container is actually running. In Docker Swarm, it will tell you like 1 out of 1 replicas, even before it's actually at the state where it can take a request. But this is something we definitely want to do. We are working on it.
So I've resolved this issue for Kubernetes with the new CRD controller, and I've tested it with 1,000 pods, and it actually works because I'm using the Kube API caching mechanism. So it just works. Sadly, Docker Swarm has no kind of caching at their API level, so we must do something, but
exactly,
we must do something only for the Swarm provider.
Yeah,
that's good. With all the split, we just have to work there.
Well, there's Swarm and then there's Nomad. So Nick isn't on the call today, but this is the challenge with open source project that's targeting multiple backends. Is we cannot just be focused on Kubernetes, even though it's great. We have to look at the whole picture, the whole system. So often that means solving the problems at the gateway level, so that whatever you're using, you're getting the same experience. And that's why this isn't there yet, because we haven't had people come forward to work on it or that have had enough time to see the full solution through. But I expect this to come this year. Earlier the better. And you're right, it will really improve the experience. So just in the last 20 minutes, we've got a demo of AKS, which is Azure Container Service, from Eric, if you want to share. Also, just mention quickly what AKS is, why it's interesting.
Sure, so let me share my screen here. All right, you guys see that? Okay, so sorry. All right, there we go. So I went to Azure. Azure is a really cool platform that's kind of like AWS, but really stripped down and like just enterprise features is kind of my take on it. But they got AKS, which is basically like a competitor to GKE, and in my opinion, it's actually better. So yesterday I wrote a blog post about deploying Kubernetes, deploying OpenFaaS on Kubernetes with AKS. And you can check this out on Medium. Alex, I think, retweeted it. So got some step-by-step instructions here. I'm going to start us off after the AKS cluster is deployed. I've got some instructions on how to do it. But it's pretty cool because after it's deployed, you can get the Kubernetes configuration into your .kube/config file just using this AKS get credentials command. And then you'll be all good to go. So let me see here. I can do kube. That's a kubectl get all -n kube-system, and it should have everything deployed here. Yep. So it looks like this is my Kubernetes cluster. I've got pretty much everything here. These are the pods. And the first thing we want to do, because we're deploying with Helm, is I want to initialize Helm on it. So These commands are stolen from the Minikube host, actually, and it just so happens that they also work here. You create service account cluster role binding for Tiller, which is like the Helm server. Then we initialize Helm with Tiller. So this will put the Tiller pod on there. And then I can see the pod get deployed there. And you need to wait until the pod is at 1 out of 1, which will probably be pretty quick. You clone the Faznetes repo, which is fine. And then the next thing that I want to do is create a load balancer for ingress into this Kubernetes cluster. By default, you have a node port, which is fine if you have access to the master node. But we don't have access to the master node with AKS because the master node is managed, which is actually a really good thing because that means you don't need to pay for the master node. So it's like one of the big advantages of AKS. It's the same deal with GKE, actually. But we're going to do that here, so we're going to run that command. Okay, so I'm running there, but I'm going to edit the Helm file to make that into a load balancer. So yeah, service type is actually a load balancer.
Eric, just had a question. Can you, and Remus might be able to answer this, can you not do this through the command line by putting -set service type load balancer?
You can, but there's multiple, no, yeah, actually you can do that. Actually,
you can set any of these things, I think, that way.
Yeah, but I prefer doing it like this just to, make sure. But yeah, so let's run that command and see what happens. RBAC is set to false because as far as I know right now, AKS does not support RBAC. So that's like, kind of a big issue with AKS, but at least we can see it working here. So let's do a kubectl. That's kubectl get all. And actually my gateway is already deployed, which is pretty cool. Faznetes D is already deployed as well. Prometheus and Alert Manager will come up. I actually have some issues getting Q-worker to come up, but that might be because I don't have async enabled. So yeah.
That will be why.
Yeah. Pending for the external IP. So this is kind of the most annoying part is you need to wait a while for the load balancer to come up. This is the case with all of the cloud providers I've tried is that the load balancer takes a while to come online. It's pretty smart about it though, because you don't need to do any manual intervention. Like Kubernetes is smart enough to be able to talk to Azure and say like, I'm working on Azure, so you need to give me an Azure load balancer, or I'm working on Google Kubernetes, so you need to give me a Google load balancer. So it's pretty good, but we'll need to wait probably like.
If that's still coming up, do you just want to explain at a high level what Helm is and what Tiller is?
I can try. So Helm seems to me to be like a package manager for Kubernetes almost. It's like a deployment manager. You can roll out updates to your cluster, and then if things go wrong, you can roll them back. That's kind of how it's envisioned, I think. As far as what I use it for, like I just use it to try to make the deployment easier so that I don't need to run kubectl commands directly. But is that kind of accurate, Alex?
Yeah. So some of you that have already tried OpenFaz with Kubernetes will have seen YAML files, and you use that kubectl, you apply the YAML files, that puts all your services in. What Helm does is it tries to abstract it a bit. So you get a package and it can be published on the internet, searched for versions. And it's quite easy to use, but it does install a bit onto your cluster called Tiller. And that's the server part. And so that's what Eric was talking about when he said, I'm going to put the Tiller in now. And then that Helm is a command line. And so you can search for Minio, for instance, and you can install Minio that way. And I know Mark, when he uses OpenFaz through his dispatch framework, uses Helm to install OpenFaz first. So you can actually say, this is my Helm chart, and it has these other Helm charts that it needs too. And it just makes things a bit easier to manage.
Yeah, so I actually just got the external IP for Prometheus. For some reason, that comes up quicker. And I'd like to be able to isolate it to just give me the external IP for the gateway, but yeah, when I use load balancer, it kind of will give you, okay, there we go. We got the external IP. So we can go here. And now the slightly confusing part is you use 8080 to get access to it. That kind of confused me at first because with Minikube, you use 31112.
Yeah.
But with the gateway external service, it kind of creates the port dynamically. So, 8080 works. And then here we got the full story. You know, this is awesome. This is my favorite function to deploy for just a hello world is the Figlet because it comes online really fast.
So this is what Stefan was talking about, right? We can't see if it's there yet.
Right. And then, you know, hi OpenFaaS contributors, and then invoke, and woohoo, it works. So that's OpenFaaS on AKS. It works. AKS is a really cool platform, especially because I like Azure resource groups a lot. Yeah. This isolates all the resources for you. So if you're ready to delete it, you just click here and click delete, and then boom, you're done.
Thanks for that demo. Has anyone got any questions for Eric before we go on to Stefan and the load testing? So I think this is the kind of thing that would be really useful for someone, you know, like maybe like what you're doing, Anisha, where if it wasn't for using Packet and etc., you can just very quickly get up and running. You don't have to worry so much about managing the cluster. It's also billed, I believe, billed per the second, which makes it
so actually UW has an account with Azure, and it's funny because I was just talking to them yesterday or on Friday to Azure people, and I was like, look, I'd love to use your service, but I really like OpenFaaS, so I pointed them to the repository. So yeah. And now this tutorial is out, so I'm definitely going to try it.
Yeah, you can use it with this, or you can use it the old way you were doing with your EC2 instances and just put it on Swarm. But we'll get you up and running, try and get things working for you right, and then we'll walk before we run. Yeah. So Stefan, over to you.
Okay, I'll share my screen. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Yep, looks good.
Okay, so before talking about load testing and how we make sure OpenFaaS can do massive loads in production, I draw a schema of how OpenFaaS works on with Kubernetes on a public cloud. I'm running on GKE, but it's the same as Azure. So basically, this is the schema. The CLI or your external clients will call a load balancer. That load balancer is made by an ingress controller. The ingress controller will hit a name port. That name port through Kubernetes proxy will find the gateway pod. The gateway pod after that will use another cluster IP service, will go again through the proxy and will find the provider. This is FastNetis. The FastNetis will go to a cluster IP service again with the IP tables, and after that will hit the actual pod where the function is running. But inside that pod, we have two things. We have the watchdog and we have the actual function. What I've been drawing here is the new watchdog that we are using, the HTTP watchdog. What it does, it just forks one time the function process, and after that, all the calls will be HTTP between the watchdog and that single function instance.
Yeah, so that's a new thing. This is something, Mark, that's worth noting. This is very similar to what we did with Afterburn. And this is also something that Pivotal's Riff framework does. And every open source FaaS that I looked at actually just uses HTTP to talk to the functions. In the wider scheme of things, we won't change what's already there. We won't deprecate it. And so running any process will still be what can happen on Windows or Linux. But we're going to have this second option that will be much, much faster. Because like Stefan said, we've got a process that's running once. It's talking to the watchdog over HTTP. It can give a custom HTTP response code and anything else that you want to.
Okay, and now I'll be using WithCloud to show real time how this is going on. So this is a real map. You can see here my ingress controller, that's a KDE server. From the KDE server, you get to the gateway. From the gateway, the gateway talks to Prometheus, but it also talks to Fastnetics. And we have here two functions made with Node 8. They are just echoing what you send them. So the first load test will be at this level. We will hit the load balancer. So we'll hit the load balancer with 10K requests, 1K request maximum in parallel.
What tool are you using there?
So I'm using Hey. Hey, it's a load test utility made with Pure Go. There are lots of others load test frameworks out there, AB from Apache and Rec or whatever it's called. How is that called? C load tester. WRK, right?
Work. Yeah, there's one called Work that we looked at. So Apache Bench is probably what anyone's already seen or heard of. It's really old, really stable, and lets you just simulate hitting the endpoint a bunch of times. Hey is written in Go, and there's 1,000 requests going on here, 100 at a time.
So right now you can see the actual CPU is going up, and here is the result. It did 184 requests per second, but the problem is 37 failed. So 37 requests failed with 502 error, HTTP error. This error, I've tracked it down in the last couple of days, and what it means is that the gateway tries to resolve the Fastnetics DNS address, and it just can't do that because we are using right now inside the gateway the Golang HTTP util library that uses a reverse proxy. And that reverse proxy doesn't make persistent HTTP calls. So for each call, we are hitting the DNS, we are hitting IP tables, we are hitting the whole infrastructure. And at this kind of load, it fails. So the next thing we'll try to hit. Let's suppose I didn't discover that problem, and I said maybe it's the load balancer, the Google Cloud load balancer. I have here the load balancer real time. You see that it's a great spike, and maybe it's the GKE load balancer. So instead of hitting the load balancer, I'm using here a node port service, and we'll hit directly the gateway. And we'll
while you're doing that, like for people that are less technical, what's important to say here is that we're running 100,000, 10,000 requests at a second, 100 people at the same time. So if you're doing Anisha's like brain training stuff, you're not going to see this. We're going to the extremities because we want to make sure this is ready for everybody, right? And it's just due diligence. So go ahead.
Okay, so right now I'm hitting the gateway directly. So if you see KDE right now is not using so much CPU, and maybe this is not really working. I don't know if I'm actually hitting what's supposed to be. Okay, so I'm not hitting the endpoint here. So what this IP here is the public IP of the gateway. So right now I'm trying
to be working though. So you should see a line to the function, shouldn't you?
Mm-hmm. Let me stop. Maybe there is a problem with my computer.
Do you want to try going to Fastnetis? I think that was the original demo, right? It was going through the gateway, seeing a few requests, not making it, and then skipping one step.
Yeah, let's try that.
Has anybody seen this visualizer before that Stefan's worked on? It's called Weave Cloud. Normally what you should see is like lines where the traffic is going. So when you're doing asynchronous call, it's quite interesting. You see it go to the gateway, to the queue worker, then to your function, and then back again, maybe out to the internet. This is free, isn't it?
Yes, there is a free version that you can run on your own infrastructure, but this is the Weave Cloud product that we host for you, so you don't have to run it on your own. Yeah, maybe I'm having some firewall issue or something.
Okay. Well, I don't think we have time to fix it now, but maybe we can record a short video and post it in Slack later.
Yeah, damn.
Live demos. At least the first one worked.
Yeah, the first one worked because the IP doesn't change, but these external IPs are not permanent IPs, so.
Okay. I think we're going to have to wrap it up there, but Eric has been taking notes, so there's a Google Doc people can head over to. Also, I mentioned I was going to talk about this HTTP mode. Mark saw your +1 there, thanks for that. There's an issue open on OpenFazFaz. This doesn't mean anything will break. This is good news. It just means there's an alternative that will scale better for this kind of testing, especially if you're using Node.js. So the question that I'm asking there is, should we pick our own kind of function signature? Should we pick the one that Lambda is using? Should we pick something else completely different? So if you have any opinion or you care about that, please check it out, see if you can comment. It'd be great to get your input.
Yeah, so I had the wrong IP address. Now it's working. So right now, if you see, the only stuff that are using CPU is Fastnetis and the tune function. And it's already done. It's made like close to 500 requests per second, and we get no errors. So from this test, what I've determined is that we can change the gateway code like we did with Fastnetis, and we'll have the same result, no more timeouts and no more errors, because we can actually rewrite the reverse proxy into something smarter that doesn't hit the DNS server. And actually, this will not only improve the Kubernetes deployment, will also work great on Swarm or any other provider, because each provider has its own internal DNS. And if we are careful not to DDoS that DNS server, we'll have the same results everywhere. So 400 requests per second on a cheap VM in Google Cloud, I think it's a great result.
Didn't you say 500?
Yeah, it's 388 requests per second in this test.
And that's with Node.js, so that's really pretty fast.
Yeah,
which is
with
great.
Go will be even faster with Go functions.
Yeah, that's what we'll test out next. So we're running over now, so we'll start to wrap things up. But really, for those of you who are technical and really want to get involved in the new templates that use HTTP, the handler will look pretty much exactly like the one you're used to. It will just provide you some extra ways of saying what the status code was, if that's interesting to you. It will also be much quicker in some circumstances. All right. So I'd love you to get involved with that. It's important for the project. And again, I'll share this video and I'll share the slides. Thank you to everyone that's given a demo, and for Anisha for coming and telling us about your project. Really appreciate it too.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Nice
Thanks, Alex. Bye, everyone.
See you guys.
So long, everybody.
Later.
Cheers, Ed.